Welcome to Hitting for the Cycle, episode 5 on the Empty the Bench podcast network. I'm Hank Indictor, and that's John Czech. John, how's it going?
Hank, we're back. This is a week of some F-bombs. I think is going to be a record for this podcast between both of what our franchises did. And boy, do we have some stuff to unwrap.
Oh, yeah, there is a lot of that, to say the least. But before we get right into the meat and potatoes of the trade deadline, I do want to tell you guys to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, X, and Instagram at HFTC And, of course, you can also follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can find a lot of good stuff there. You can find the 3&D. You can find the namesake of the network. And, of course, Fruity Cereal. All good stuff coming your way. And, of course, follow our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB Network. And if you don't mind, please hit that big red button down below and give us a like and a comment. And, let us know your thoughts. We kind of like interacting with you guys. And last but not least, please make sure you follow the website, etbpodcast.com, for great blogs and more information as well. Yours truly's kind of been slacking in that department, but that's really neither here nor there. But for now, let's get into the MLB trade deadline. And John, let me just start right off the bat and say there is one epic loser right here. And unfortunately, that loser just so happens to be the team that I am wearing on this jersey and my baseball cap. And John, because I am a semi-masochist, I still somehow tolerate and watch this team on a near daily basis. That would be the Yankees, who did absolutely nothing. And let's put it this way. If this were a report card, Brian Cashman would get an F. Now, look, I understand that there wasn't a lot of minor league prospects in the system. I understand that buying wouldn't have really done anything, but for them to do nothing, I'm sorry. This really just shows you how far the Yankees have fallen, and it's really just such a damn shame. I mean, look, this is one of the worst offenses I've ever seen, and look, I've seen the Yankees struggle to get hits in clutch situations for years, but I mean, when you look at the numbers of so many of the guys, it just goes to show you what good did firing that hitting coach do?
And all the failure.
Let me play devil's advocate to you a little bit, Hank. Let me talk you off the bridge a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
So the Yankees currently are sitting in last place in the AL East, right? And you're looking up at the teams ahead of you. Would you say you're better than Boston right now?
No.
The Red Sox have done so well with openers. They've getting
John, that's low-hanging fruit.
Well, let me don't jump off the Brooklyn Bridge yet. Just one sec. So the Red Sox, they've been getting really good performances from their openers. Paxton's been pitching well. Their bullpen's been good. Tristan Cassis has been playing great. You can make the argument that the Yankees are not better than the Red Sox. Definitely not better than the Orioles. The Blue Jays, even, and I'm going to use your favorite word, being mid, the Yankees are definitely not better than them. And no way in hell are they better than the Rays. You have a team that you only have one player with an over 700 OPS in Aaron Judge. You have a team that your farm system isn't really that prospect heavy. You have some elite prospects like with Jones and Dominguez, and now Volpe's getting a chance. Would buying, when you have such a tough division and you have such a crap team, would have really even done anything? Would it have changed your perspective that you would have thought, okay, we add a bat, we add maybe a reliever besides, I think they got Middleton from the White Sox. Would you be sitting here today saying if they would have bought and they would have got out, say they would have got, I don't know, say if Cody Bellinger was available before the Cubs, would it change your perspective on where you would finish at the end of this year in the division and a hope for a playoff run?
Marginally, because I think if they had gotten the player like a Cody Bellinger, yeah, sure, it would probably improve the lineup, but would buying really improve their chances of winning World Series? I mean, look, John, any small chance that a Yankees fan like myself could have delusionally had a while ago went all the way out the window when Aaron Judge went on the IL. And ever since then, they have only won like one or two series. And the only two series I can remember the Yankees winning within the last like month were against the two worst teams in baseball. Let's face it. The only reason the Yankees are above 500 is because of the stretch of baseball that they played with Aaron Judge on this roster. And if you were going to buy, like, what were you going to try to fight for? Extra playoff revenue, more money from those chicken tender buckets, and to save the streak of consecutive winning seasons? Yeah, no, it would have still been a mediocre year anyways. And not to mention, you probably weren't even going to get a home game anyways if you're lucky enough to even get to the wild card round, because you're probably not finishing ahead of, say, Baltimore or heck, even whoever doesn't win the AL Western Division, because those teams are fighting for not only that, but the best record in the league, possibly.
Didn't the Angels jump the Yankees now in the wild card?
Yeah, no, it's really pathetic. Literally pathetic how far they've fallen.
I think this whole Yankees debacle falls more on the shoulder of Brian Cashman staying pat to what he's tried to win with the last few years in a row, staying pat and not trying to improve their team in the ways they need to be improved. They thought getting Carlos, they were going to just go out and be top end pitching heavy with Rodon and Cole. Severino has completely backfired in their face because he's done nothing. Rodon has only made, 4 starts now as a Yankee, and you're in August. Domingo German is now not going to throw another pitch for the Yankees the rest of the year. Basically, you got one start out of him all year where you're like, wow, this is great. And that was a perfect game. That was about it. You don't have an outfield. Giancarlo Stanton's been hurt. Anthony Rizzo had to change his walk-up song to Taylor Swift to hit his first home run in like 2 months. Their team is in shambles, is what it is. It's not about being pissed whether or not they were buyers or sellers or even trying to add anything. You should be pissed at the fact that they have stood pat for this long, continue to bolster a lineup that they struck out the most times in 2 days in their entire franchise history. They fired their hitting coach for the first time in Cashman's history mid-season, put the mayor in there to see that it was going to change anything. And guess what? It don't matter what kind of speeches the mayor's giving. Sean Casey didn't do shit because this offense is still just as bad. So I don't know. If I'm a Yankees fan, I'm not even pissed that they didn't get anything. I'm more pissed that they keep running the same old out there and expect different results.
I'm sorry. Who is this crazy bespectacled Yankees fan that you somehow have been interacting with over the past few years that has been calling them on this show the definition of insanity?
Listen, I agree.
Who's this crazy Yankee fan that somehow keeps complaining that, that they need to change things or else they're going to keep going back to the way things have been and they're going to keep failing?
Yeah. I'm really surprised they didn't try to unload like Bader or someone who's on an expiring contract.
If they had unloaded Bader, it would have sucked because I love Bader. Don't get me wrong. He's a fellow, he's a Bronxville native, which is a town that's like literally not too far from where I am. But I still would have understood it. And if they'd let some other pieces go that they could have gotten in value for it, sure. Would it have sucked? Yeah. But at the same time, the reality is this team was going nowhere. And Brian Cashman has the audacity to have a press conference where he says, oh, we're so in it to win it. Yeah. Bullshit. In it to win what? That failed playoff revenue? More money for chicken tender buckets or more money just because you're the Yankees and you print money? Yeah, that's what you're in it to win it for. Or wait. What about this? Are you more in it to win it just to satisfy the needs of the Billy Madison of baseball owners? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm talking about Hal Steinbrenner.
Yep.
That's what they're in it to win it for.
Yep.
Bullshit. Like it's so ridiculous how far this team has fallen. Look, again, I hate being one of those Yankee fans that says, well, if George was alive, such and such would have happened. True. And look, John, if you ever want to talk baseball, Yankees history with me, I'll be the first to tell you that as great of an owner as George was, he was also very flawed. But at least with George Steinbrenner, even if a lot of his decisions were impulsive and irrational, you knew this was a guy who wanted to win.
Yep.
You don't see that same mentality within the front office nowadays. You see guys being like behind on the analytical curve that they're essentially becoming dinosaurs. And John, you know what happens? You know what happens to dinosaurs? They eventually become extinct.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you can't in this day and age, and we're going to touch on the Mets here in a little bit. I think the Mets and the Padres are perfect proof that spending right through your problems just doesn't work anymore because, back 20 years ago when you spent through your problems, your payroll was $110 million. You could afford to do that because the AAVs were so low, well, relatively low compared to then. You can't really do that now when you got this soft cap at the luxury threshold. One player and overpaying one player no longer, it doesn't really work when you have a roster that's completely flawed. It's different when you have a good team that's missing a piece versus you have a horrible team and you're trying to make up for the lack of depth with one over price player, which is what the Yankees have continually done. So it's just a flawed roster construction. They need to do something really bad because there's zero reason why the Yankees with that payroll should have a similar offense to the Tigers, who don't even have $100 million payroll.
And can I go a step further and ask you this question, John? If you're a Yankee fan, are you more upset that the Yankees didn't do anything to address the lineup needs during the offseason? Or are you more upset now that they didn't even sell when they could have?
I'm more upset that they thought Carlos Rodon was going to be the answer to all their problems. I would have went after a bat in the offseason versus starting pitching, personally, especially for a starter that hasn't been known for his durability. He had issues with the White Sox. The only reason why he got paid what he paid is because he exceeded his innings clause that he had with the Giants. So he was going to get into some money because he hit a certain amount of innings pitched for like the first time in years. I would have much rather worked on sinking money into bats and putting an offense out there to surround Judge. Because, I mean, you look at like the last truly great Yankee team, like 2017, 2018, when you had the baby bombers, Sanchez comes up and is hitting home runs at a historic pace. Glaber, at one time was a 30-plus home run bat. DJ LeMahieu, all of a sudden, was a great signing. Aaron Judge sets the rookie home run record. You had a lineup that was really good. And you had a lineup that could also play some defense as well. Giancarlo Stanton in 2017 was a lot different than he is now. So looking at the team, I think they kept the band together for a little bit too long. They didn't dump some players when they should have dumped some players, when they had chances to get something for them, when their value was still semi-decent. And now they're paying for it because they are trying to Band-Aid shit together by signing someone like Carlos Rodon when there's still so many flaws within their team. Like, come on, you expected Josh Donaldson to be like 2015 Josh Donaldson? You get IKF to play shortstop for you, and he couldn't. He hits like his wand's like a little, his bat's like a little fairy wand. He has a little fairy dust. Poof, poof. He's smacking. It's like he's smacking the ball with a lunch bag. It's like their moves don't make sense. And I honestly think the 10-year, every great guy, like we'll take it to hockey, something I can relate to. Ken Holland got the Red Wings to the playoffs for 24 years. Well, I don't know if he was GM the whole time, but the Red Wings had gotten to the playoffs 24 years, but Ken Holland was responsible for a lot of that.
Yeah.
He hasn't been the GM for the Red Wings in, I think, like 7 years now. Brian Cashman, I appreciate you. You did everything that you needed to do. You brought a couple championships here, but sometimes a new voice is needed and a philosophy change it needs to be done. It just is what it is. Baseball's a what have you done for me lately sport, and he hasn't done shit.
No, I'm glad you actually used that comparison with Ken Holland, and Pittsburgh Penguins are going something similar, although the difference is they had another GM who kind of like allowed the start of their downfall, and they've had other regime changes since, but I digress. Yeah, when it comes to Brian Cashman, I mean, look, do I think he should get as much credit as he does for a lot of the championships that he's won? Not really, because it was Gene Michael who was the one who drafted the core four, made the trade for Paul O'Neill and Tino Martinez, and drafted Bernie Williams, et cetera, et cetera. And Bob Watson also pulled the finishing touches on the 1996 Yankees World Series run. Don't get me wrong, Brian Cashman made some key moves that helped the Yankees, but he also, let's not kid ourselves, even though he's done a great job, and I also give him a lot of credit for the 2009 construction, he has not built a pennant winner in close to 15 years. Yours truly was 13 years old the last time the Yankees had won a World Series. And eventually there comes a time where when you don't get the results, a change needs to be made. And again, and like I said, I'm not the biggest Brian Cashman fan there is, but I will also give him the recognition for a lot of the good stuff he's done, because I think that's only fair. Now, however, yeah, I think you pretty much made a great point in comparing him to Ken Holland. And speaking of Detroit, I would say that that's another big MLB trade deadline loser. I mean, all you really were able to get rid of was Michael Lorenzen, and then there was that whole fiasco with Eduardo Rodriguez. And I'm John, I know it's a little early into his tenure, but has this pretty much damaged a lot of trust that you had in Scott Harris going in?
I'm going to use a different word to describe what yesterday was.
Okay, go for it.
Debacle, butchery, an albatross of GMing.
Woo.
I like Scott Harris. I've had a day or two to calm down. When I did my video on my YouTube channel, I was fuming bad. I was fuming pissed. But now that some more details have come out and I've had a couple days, here's a rational take that involves about 37 less F-bombs. The thing that pisses me off the most about this is they knew since May that Eduardo Rodriguez was not going to be a Detroit Tiger. They knew since May that this man is most likely going to opt out of his contract. They have known since May that this team, well, let me take that back. They ended May at one game under 500. But when Eduardo Rodriguez and Riley Green both went down within 24 hours of one another, that is when they knew that this team was not going to be a contender. Then they start June 0-9 for the first 9 games. That is when they knew. You had basically give or take 7 weeks to work out a trade. Now, I understand he had 10 teams on his no trade clause. I understand that he wanted to go to certain markets, and I understand that only certain teams are going to – the Tigers' asking price was extremely high, which I'm glad, because Al Avila's track record of getting players hasn't been great. He basically – some of the trades he's made. Today, the Tigers released Franklin Perez. Do you even know who Franklin Perez is? Exactly. He was the Astros' number 1 prospect. And he was in the trade for Justin Verlander. Out of all 3 of those guys, 1 guy is in the major leagues, and that's Jake Rogers. Yeah. So Al Avila's track record wasn't great. But what pisses me off is that Scott Harris comes in, and he's supposed to be this boy wonder because he worked under Jed Hoyer, Theo Epstein, Farhan Zaidi, and he had his asking price set high, and he's going to basically not let the Tigers get fleeced like how Al Avila has in the past few years. So he trades Michael Lorenzen for Haas Ali, which was the Phillies' number 5 prospect. He's the number 6 prospect for the Tigers. Honestly, you're going from trash system to trash system, even though the Tigers have 3 prospects in the top 100 now compared to only 1 last year. So whatever, Lorenzen was expiring anyways. So this is where it really pisses me off, is where they have a trade worked out with the Dodgers, and Scott Harris said they had talked to Eduardo Rodriguez about waiving his no-trade clause. Now, here's where I got really pissed. How do you only have 1 team and 1 bullet in the chamber? How, if you as a GM, with a piece as valuable as Eduardo Rodriguez, literally say a team that's a playoff contender. Eduardo Rodriguez fits. Now, I understand that he has this opt-out that he might opt into the money at the end of the year, but I would say with a 99.99999% certainty that a guy that is only making like $18 million a year, $17 million a year, he's got 3 years at 49 left after this year. There's a good chance when you have one of the lowest ERAs in the whole AL that you're going to opt out and get paid because you're going to go up maybe about $10 million more per year. So how do you not have multiple trade scenarios lined up to begin with? Second thing second, Eduardo Rodriguez, I thought this was an extremely selfish move. And people are like, well, how can you sit there and talk shit because he was not leaving because he wanted to not uproot his family? Ken Rosenthal came out today. They released a thing that Eduardo Rodriguez had agreed to waive his no trade clause to go to the Dodgers. But there was a caveat. And this is where the shit smells like shit, Hank, my friend.
Oh boy.
He wanted a singular year added on to his contract at $20 million. So in case he opted in, it wouldn't have been 3 at 49. It would have been 4 at 69. So how can someone sit here and say that he stayed in Detroit because his family is comfortable and he doesn't want to uproot his family, but $20 more million for an extra year in case you opted in? That would have got you to fucking move? All of a sudden, that extra $20 million? That's where the shit smells like shit, Hank. That's where the bullshit comes out. It wasn't about him not wanting to leave Detroit. It wasn't about him wanting to stay here, not uproot his family. He wanted more money. It's all about the money. That's what it was about. So not only did he fuck over the Tigers, because the media asked him about it yesterday, is he going to opt in? He said, if I had a magic 8-ball, I would tell you right now if I was going to stay here. But I don't know. But I'm signed here long-term, and I plan on being here long-term. That was his exact quotes. No, you're fucking not, dude. You didn't get the extra $20 million you wanted. You were going to opt out anyways. At the end of the year, because you know you're going to go on to get more money. You're not going to go for 3 at 49. You weren't ever staying here. You don't want to stay here. You didn't get the money you wanted, and you wanted that extra year just in case you wanted to opt in. You don't give two shits about it. And what really pisses me off the most is the fact that last year he gets hurt, and then he leaves the team for almost 3 months, Hank. Almost 3 months. Al Avila was asked about him. He said he didn't even know where he was at. He didn't know. You hadn't been in contact with him. The Tigers could have very easily avoided his contract. He had only made like 6 starts. They kept him around. They let him do him. He couldn't waive it. You're fucking opting out anyways. It doesn't matter. You're only going to pitch 2 months worth of starts there. Nope. Because he didn't get that extra $20 million, he comes out and fucking says it's about his family when it's a lie. Everything that he says is pointing to it's a lie. The details that came out said it was a lie. It's about the money, and he fucked the Tigers over. So I'm pissed at him, and I'm also pissed at Scott Harris at not having multiple trades lined up. That being said, you can't doubt Scott Harris yet. He's had 1 year. You gave Al Avila 7 years of pure trash, but you can't doubt Scott Harris yet because he has made some good moves. Like Matt Vierling is over a 1-win player already, 1 WAR player. He's done great. Nick Maton's been bad, but like Zach McKinstry has been an everyday regular for you. Andy Abanya has been an everyday regular for you. It just looks really bad that he didn't have a plan B lined up. You cannot not have a plan B lined up and expect him to go. And I swear to God, if the trade details ever come out about this and it's someone like Michael Bush or one of their 2 big catchers that was in the trade, I'm going to really be fucking pissed at Eduardo Rodriguez. But it was bullshit yesterday. That's all I got to say. Or on Monday.
All I can say is I hope you have to hope that Scott Harris uses this as a learning experience. And if he's smart, I'm sure maybe that'll be the case. But yeah, at the same time, I think it makes a lot of sense. Erod, there's no way Erod would have wanted to stay in Detroit. I don't think
he's going to be on the first fucking plane out of here, October 2nd or 3rd, whenever the season ends. He's gone. They're gonna come back in after his final start, and they're going to be like, where's his stuff? That's what it's going to be. He's out. He's going to clean that place out. Gone. But, it is what it is. It is what it is. And
a discussion for another day, but I have a feeling that after this, Erod's probably going to be ranked somewhere in your bottom 10 in terms of least favorite Tigers. I mean, I usually tend to have top 10s, but in this case,
Oh, he's there. Brandon Inge, he's there. I promise
Oh,
you
yeah,
that.
no, I remember you telling me once how much you hated Brandon Inge.
Most overrated Tigers player of all time. But anyways, I guess let's keep looking at some of the other winners and losers.
Yeah, I was going to say, we should probably go on to the positives. I mean, we've ranted about our teams enough so far. So let's talk about the winners here. And I'm going to say a pretty obvious winner, Texas Rangers. I mean, look, the Max Scherzer trade was one thing, and that was huge for them to get a proven ace. Now, granted, this is a 40-year-old Max Scherzer we're talking about. We're not talking about 2015 Max Scherzer, who was in his prime and striking out 20 batters in a game and coming within a hit batsman away from throwing a perfect game. This is a Max Scherzer who's 40 and has declining stuff. But putting him in a pitching rotation that already has John Gray, already has Nathan Eovaldi, already has Dane Dunning, to name a few, that definitely improves their chances. And then to top that off by adding Jordan Montgomery into the mix, who is a solid left-handed pitcher, I would say that that's definitely a win for the Texas Rangers.
100%. Max Scherzer pitched his first start today as a Texas Ranger, and he had a rough first inning against the White Sox of all teams, but he ended up striking out 9 hitters, I think over 5 or 6 with only 3 earned runs. So that's exactly what they needed. I guess their philosophy is one Mets starter had Tommy John again for the second time. So let's see what a second Mets starter does. So, I mean, he's definitely got, and Nate Eovaldi just went down. He's definitely got stuff. And even though it's declining, this is a guy that's pitched so many big innings. This is a guy that's been there, done that. And I would still trust Max Scherzer to take the ball in the playoff game. Now, the Mets did last year. The Dodgers did a couple years ago. And, you could definitely see the age is starting to kick in. Like, he had a game where he had pulled himself out. I think it was with the Dodgers, that game against the Cardinals. He pulled himself out of the game because he just had nothing left after like 6 innings, which is weird for Max. But, Montgomery is a great pitcher. And I think that's going to be one of the more underrated trades, because this is a guy that, he really had pitched well after he had left the Yankees. He'd had some struggles with the Cardinals, but adding him and Scherzer, then you're going to get hopefully a healthy Eovaldi with a Dane Dunning, and Heaney's been good, and Martin Perez is an okay starter. That's a hell of a thing. And I think the only thing that you could question now is how good is their bullpen going to hold up, because they still didn't do a whole bunch to fix their bullpen. I mean, they did get a Aroldis Chapman and whatnot, but how good is their bullpen going to hold up? Which I think is going to lead us into the next Texas team, the Astros, because Verlander goes there. Framber throws a no-hitter on the day that Verlander gets traded, and now all of a sudden you had a rotation that was struggling, because Christian Javier's had an up and down year, Hunter Brown's had an up and down year, and now you get my guy, JV, and my love for JV. You get the guy, JV, who's going to come in there, and he's still got ace stuff. His stuff isn't diminishing whatsoever. Strikeouts are down. And now you got to look at it like this, Hank. Who are you taking if they were to play each other in a game 1 ALCS start? Scherzer or Verlander?
This is a really tough choice, but you know what? I'm gonna have to go with your boy Justin Verlander, because I'm sorry, the guy has been absolute money in a lot of big games. I know he's 40 years old, but the man ages like fine wine. And
I think that no-hitter, dude, the day he got traded, that might be a day you look back on when the Astros at the end of the year, if they were to win the division, that changed everything. Watch.
Oh, John, look, like I said, the Astros are essentially in New England Patriots territory for now. They may be getting a lot of shit and a lot of backlash and a lot of hate, but now that you have Justin Verlander, you're coming off another World Series. You've still got a really good team, and you have the experience of going deep in the postseason. How can I not go against the Astros in these circumstances? I mean, look, do I want Texas to win? Sure. but history is history.
So you take the Astros to win the division too this year? Now they got Verlander?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, same.
Absolutely.
Because now they got Jordan back. Kyle Tucker's super good. And I'm telling you, the effect of having someone like Justin Verlander on the rotation, Hunter Brown pitched some of his best baseball when he got called up last year, and Verlander was right there. And Hunter Brown's a Detroit native. I think he went to Wayne State. He and Verlander have really similar pitching mechanics. Was like a little puppy dog flying around. Having someone like him to pitch every fifth day with that kind of hardware behind him, and then they throw a no-hitter. They got that might be the day that people look back on and go, damn, this is why the Astros won the West.
And hey, what if they go further than that?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Me neither. And I think another team that you could say was a winner was the Baltimore Orioles. I thought getting Jack Flaherty really helps a pitching rotation that's been kind of average at best, but at the end of the day, it's still been competitive, and you still have that really insane bullpen in that lineup. So I think the Orioles might have taken another step to probably win the American League East, and who knows, maybe they can wreak havoc in the AL playoffs.
My only complaint with them is I know Verlander would have had a waive his trade clause, but I honestly thought if Verlander went to the Orioles, it would have been a 2017 Astros. 100% if you would have went.
Oh, yeah. Well, it wouldn't make sense. Their GM was I think the assistant to the guy who ran the 2017 Astros.
Yep, Lou now.
Yeah, I think Elias was one of his assistants.
Yeah.
And what was another big winner? We'll get to the Mets in a bit. But John, what was another big winner that really stood out to you?
I kind of like what the Red Sox did. I know what I was really surprised about was the Marlins trade. They ended up getting Josh Bell. I know Josh Bell already hit a home run for them, but the fact that Cleveland got out from underneath that money that they had just signed him to get Gene Segura, and then they released Gene Segura right away. I was really surprised that they'd even made that move. And how about the Rays getting Aaron Savali? Like, that was a really nice pickup for them. He's injury prone as all hell, but he's a really good pitcher. Like, really, really good.
Yeah. No, I think the Marlins are definitely finding ways to slowly improve their team, and obviously making that push for the wild card, since we know that division's pretty much a lost cause. I still pretty much wouldn't be surprised if the Braves kind of took the whole thing.
Now, the Angels didn't trade Shohei, but they did add a lot. Would you consider them a winner with the pieces they added, or a loser because they didn't trade Shohei?
John, this is going to sound like a cop-out, but let me get back to you about that answer come playoff time.
Okay.
The reason being is because if they this could either work out really well in their favor, they could possibly make an unexpected playoff run. I mean, I'm not saying it's realistic, but stranger things have happened in baseball. Or it could fall flat on their face, which would not surprise me at all, because this is the Angels we're talking about.
They gave up a lot to get what they got, but
they did. I agree.
They got some good bats, like Grichuk and Crone both can hit. And it's kind of funny they got two former Angels to come back. Excuse me, even though Grichuk never had played a game at the MLB level as an Angel. But I don't know. Their moves were kind of surprising too. I mean, they went for it. They tried to add bats, and hopefully Mike Trout's only a couple weeks out. So their lineup actually don't look that bad. They got some pieces in there. And then but that team is just so cursed because they get those pieces and then Taylor Ward gets hit in the face. And he had destroyed the Tigers a couple of games before he got hit in the face.
Well, until I see otherwise, I'm going to say the Angels made deals with the devil.
There you go. I could agree.
I mean, I'm sorry, but it's ironic that I've had to use that phrase so often with a team named the Angels, but such is the case when you have Artie Moreno as your owner.
Yep.
Anyways, now let's talk about the Mets, because I think that team deserves their own little banner, so to speak, and their own little talking point. Now, the Mets were one of the teams that a lot of people would argue were one of the biggest disappointments of the season, and for good reason. You put in a lot of money with your team. You got Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. You're already paying Francisco Lindor. You're paying Brandon Nimmo a lot of money, and you're coming off a 100-win season. This year, anything that could go wrong for the Mets has go wrong. And John, I would argue that this was kind of the opposite of what happened just 1 year prior, where they had a lot of breaks go their way, and thus that was the reason they were able to win so many games. Ultimately, they just couldn't win the division because they were stuck with the Atlanta Braves, and they lost out in the head-to-head matchup. But in any event, to answer the question right here, I would say the Mets are definitely better off in the future right now because, look, as much as it stings to see a team sell off the way they did, the Mets actually did a pretty solid job in rebuilding their farm system. You got 2 of the top 5 prospects in the Verlander trade, and then you got another really top one in Acuna from the Texas Rangers. Now, there's no telling what could happen with those guys, but if the Mets really were, so quote-unquote, rebuilding, I don't think that would really last long with them because, remember, at the end of the day, they're a big market team. I think building up the talent prospect pool is really going to help them once they can, should they try to spend money again, a la the Texas Rangers. So I would not say that they're worse. I think they definitely got better, but ultimately, because of a lot of poor moves that Billy Epler made, I still don't think he's going to have a job after the season.
You know, Steve Cohen tried to be the modern day George Steinbrenner, where he was going to try to spend through his problems. He was going to try to assemble a team of all-star players.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was last week or not when we were talking. I think it was during the trade deadline podcast where I was talking about, imagine if they would have got Carlos Correa and how screwed they would have been, because
oh my gosh,
they would have been stuck in a Padres situation where the Padres, they can't sell because they have so many guys to long-term deals and they leverage so much of their future that they can't get rid of Juan Soto. They can't try to get back some of the prospect capital that they have dealt away because, okay, so you trade Juan Soto, you trade Blake Snell, you trade Josh Hader, that's fine, good and great. But now you're paying, Manny Machado $37 million. You're paying Xander Bogaerts all that money, all that other stuff. So they're honestly lucky that deal fell through, or they would have been in a spot where they couldn't have did this because there's no way they'd have been able to unload those contracts. Now, Steve Cohen already came out today and said that the Mets do plan to be competitive in 24. He kind of didn't say if they were going to go out and they were going to spend like how they spent. The free agency class is kind of weak this year, but what they did do is with revamping the farm system and getting the kind of quality that they got, they gave themselves now some trade chips if they want to trade people for some guys that are on more elite type player. They went out and they gave their system some prospects with ceiling and not such a middling ceiling that some of their prospect was, because really you look at their team, it's like Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, Alvarez has been great this year. He's definitely living up to his hype.
Oh yeah,
but they're giving themselves a chance. And I think Cohen is realizing that in this baseball climate, in this baseball world, just because you have players with baseball card stats doesn't always necessarily necessitate success. And you look at a team like the Cincinnati Reds, where they only really have one big contract on that team, which is Joey Votto. They've sucked for a few years, but Nick Kroll goes out and they did absolutely outstanding work at getting prospects, making great trades. And now you look at them where you got like McLean, Steer, Encarnacion Strand, Ellie De La Cruz, Hunter Green. So they went and they built this nucleus, and it's a cost-controlled nucleus. And the Braves are the absolute poster child for this, where they're signing all these guys where they have cost-controlled nucleuses. And the Mets realize, and Cohen realizes, you may have Lindor, you may have Verlander, you may have Scherzer. It doesn't matter. You got to have underlying talent. It doesn't mean that these guys are going to come up and they're going to play and play what they've always played to the level to, because they just haven't. And the one thing that the Mets should be really lucky about is Cohen has the Bucks. Your average franchise makes this kind of payroll commitment. They can't outdo this, like what they did. All the money they sent to both Texas teams, Astros and Houston, or the Rangers and Houston. Your average team isn't going to make that kind of commitment. The Yankees, I don't think the Yankees would, if they say they tried to unload the Rondon contract, they wouldn't have did something like that. You think Brian Cashman would have took that kind of an L, took that kind of egg on his face, and gave up all that money just to get rid of those contracts? Now, he did get good prospects because of it, but I think the Mets are definitely better for it. They can build a more realistic, younger core, and now they have some trade chips to try to get an actual team around. Now, the question is, do they re-sign Pete Alonso? You know, are they going to look to get, because his contract's coming up soon too. You know, it's going to be interesting to see. I like who they got though. They got some really nice pieces.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as far as Pete Alonso goes, I would say that question's probably one that you're going to figure out with time, because with regards to him, he's the face of your franchise, but at the very least, you should at least listen to offers. I'm not saying make a trade, for Pete Alonso, but you never know. You get offered you have a house, somebody wants to offer it to you for more than what it's worth, you end up taking it, If the Mets get a Godfather-like offer for, say, Pete Alonso.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, I think now that you've put it out there that, that you're getting rid of some of your players, Pete Alonso really hasn't had that great of a year this year. I mean, he's got the home runs, but look at the way his average has fallen. Look at the way that his on base has fallen. His strikeout numbers are astronomical this year. So, if you're the Mets, would you trade Pete Alonso?
Sounds like John, that sounds like a modern day Dave Kingman.
Yeah. The thing is you still have Lindor. You don't know what these guys you got are going to be. And I don't know, how old is Pete Alonso? Like 26 or 27, right? He's not
like my age. I think he's like a year older than I am.
He's not that close to 30. You still got a bunch of prime years left, and he is a guy that puts asses in the seats. He is a guy that, I would build a franchise around him. The modern day players is 3 true outcome bullshit, and the modern day player is Pete Alonso. I mean, I think there's only like 13 hitters in the entire MLB that are hitting over 300 anyways. So I don't know. If the offer's right, you can't say no. But how much money is Cohen wanting to spend? And is Cohen going to want to try to do this again where he spends those problems versus stacking blue chip prospects is going to be the thing. Is Epler going to turn around their philosophy? Are they going to try to buy a World Series fast or try to develop a core and try to outbrave the Braves? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think those are all pretty much good points, but we've pretty much had to focus our attention this show on the trade deadline. Let me go back to the Yankees and rant about another thing before we end this show. Right. Domingo German has entered an alcohol abuse treatment program. And John, there's a lot of people that need to be finger pointed for this.
Yeah,
and
100%.
The first question I have is, number one, why the hell is this guy still on our team? Like, this is a player that we're talking about had a domestic violence scandal happen, say 4 years ago. This was like the last good Yankees team that I can think of, the 2019 team. And then, granted, they probably don't win that series against Houston anyways, but he very well may have screwed them in their chances to going over the top and into the World Series. Then we find out that he gets busted for PEDs, and not long after he gets caught with pine tar. Now this. Now, granted, in between, you did have that one perfect game in there, but John, let me ask you the same question that I asked you beforehand, and I'm going to give you the Zen riddle of perfect game questions. If a major league pitcher throws a perfect game and it happens against the Oakland A's, was it still a perfect game? Now, we're not talking about the Bash Brothers Oakland A's. We're talking about the John Fisher-owned trying to tank on purpose so we can move the Las Vegas A's.
Well, it goes in the scorebook as one, so I guess you got to count it as one.
True, but you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean it's a quad A team essentially disguised as a major league ball club is all it is.
More like the Oakland AAAs.
Yeah. I mean it's all. I mean you can make is Armando Galarraga's a perfect game, even though the 27th out should have been the 27th out.
Okay. Whoa. Those are completely different circumstances. But yes, I don't disagree with you.
I mean if you're gonna talk about circumstances and certain things, I mean. Was one more of a perfect game than the other, even though one says one's in the scorebook as one and one, isn't, but it was. All the proof shows that it was.
The point that I'm trying to get at, John, is his ERA was pretty sky high. He had some bad start. He had a lot of bad starts this season. He somehow just got lucky enough that one of those starts happened against the Oakland A's, and it, I would say, marginally polished up his ERA. So, given that, and then, all the, I just don't get why he's on this team. And number two, I think the Yankees knew about his problems with alcohol going into this.
Oh yeah, you're telling me this guy's never been drunk in the clubhouse or something before?
The Yankees clearly had to have known. And I think the only reason they made the move when they did was just, because probably something was going to come out. And I don't know who it was, but everyone, Hal Steinbrenner, Brian Cashman, and Aaron Boone, these guys all failed him. This guy had a lot of demons, and I just...
Do you think he comes back? Do you think he comes back next year?
Oh, no. But then again, would I put it past him? No, because remember, Hal Steinbrenner is the same owner who, who didn't want to, do anything about the domestic violence thing because of how well he was pitching in 2019. So, he's the type of guy that allows Yankees to have, issues on the roster, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, kind of just sleeps under the rug.
Sounds like Jerry Jones to a certain extent, because have you noticed Jerry Jones has done that a lot with the Cowboys?
Yeah, Pac-Man Jones.
Oh God. Yeah, no. I think all it really is, it's just another black eye on what has been a terrible Yankee season. And look, I don't want to sound like I'm picking a guy while he's down, because I do honestly hope that he gets the help that he gets. So I don't want to make light of this whole situation. But the fact of the matter is, this guy has proven time and time again that he has been very badly behaved. He is not somebody that clearly represents the Yankee way, if the Yankee way even exists anymore.
Yeah.
There's no chance he would have survived if George was still the owner. And again, there I go again with comparing the current ownership, what's going on to George. But yeah, George may have picked up guys and given them second chances. But if a guy failed under his watch multiple times, George wouldn't have tolerated that.
Oh yeah, no chance. He would have been gone, especially with how bad his performances have been. I mean, because overall he hasn't pitched good at all.
No.
So if this was old Georgie boy still there, dude, he would have gone so fast. There is no chance in hell he would have made as many starts this year as he did to even get the opportunity. I guess I was reading some stuff on I guess we call it X now, which is stupid. That I guess he had shown in the clubhouse and stuff being intoxicated multiple times. I guess he's never really shown any aggression towards his teammates, and he's not a clubhouse cancer from what they've said, but there's been a lot of clear indications that he's been struggling with alcohol for a minute. So to let them go out, I mean, if you're Boone or Steinbrenner, I guess it's kind of a hard thing to approach. It's hey man, instead of Jack Daniels, how about you drink a Gatorade or something? I don't know how exactly you approach that. But the fact, with domestic abuse and stuff, he's got the kind of chance that he's had. I mean, like you look at like what had happened to Trevor Bauer, you know, like he's in Japan now, and that's a whole other thing. But you know, it's surprisingly he's even on a major league roster with how serious that is in today's game. I mean, like Mike Clevenger, you know, he had got accused of that. He was acquitted of it. You know, he wasn't found guilty, but he might not even be able to pitch. You know, the White Sox were prepared to dump his ass even before he made a start as a White Sox. It was in spring training. So I don't know, man. I think for even just taking the alcohol and the domestic abuse stuff, they need to find a better option anyways. Because you look at the back half of that rotation. I mean, Herman and Severino, that's brutal right now. So they need to find a replacement for him anyways. And because if they're going to keep selling chicken tender buckets, they got to at least have more than 2/5 of their rotation, you know, can throw a quality start. Because like even like Clark Schmidt, he is extremely inconsistent as well. I think he was better as a bullpen arm than he was as a starter, but that's just my personal opinion. But I don't know, man. It's very surprising that the Yankees are tolerating something like this, especially from a pitcher that's not really that great.
By the way, is it a surprise, though? Because let's not forget, do you remember what Hal said after the Yankees got Aroldis Chapman?
Mm-mm.
He was like, oh, I wouldn't be too concerned. This stuff will all blow over anyways. I'm sorry, but even when they got Aroldis Chapman, that never sat too well with me. Like, Hal Steinbrenner comes across as somebody who needs to take sensitivity training classes. That's just my personal opinion.
I was going to say, it sounds like him and Rob Manfred are taking the same PR classes.
No, more like good old Hal Steinbrenner, but
yeah, good old. Both
regardless,
the devil.
Well, regardless, it's interchangeable because both of those millionaires are tone deaf.
Yeah. Public speaking is not always their strong suit, especially in today's day and age where like you're chastised for every little thing that you said. Dude,
well,
it's amazing. I'm surprised there's not like a bunch of people outside picketing Yankee Stadium right now to get rid of Domingo German.
Here's the thing. Hal Steinbrenner is not only tone deaf, he's also, I don't know what drugs he's smoking. Because remember, this is the same guy who said, oh, I like our chances of winning.
Yeah. With a team that's as mediocre as that. What was Anthony Rizzo hitting since May? Wasn't it like under 200?
I think I read you his average earlier. It was like 150 something. It worse than mid.
Yeah, he's been horrible. Well, he did get a Taylor Swift song, so he could hit a home run finally.
Good for him. But anyways, that'll about wrap it up for another episode of Hitting for the Cycle. John, as always, definitely a pleasure talking baseball with you, and looking forward to running it back next week for episode numero 6.
Already 6 weeks in. It's going by fast, Hank.
But before we wrap things up, as always, I want to give you guys a friendly neighborhood reminder. Please don't forget to follow us on all of our social medias. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, and X at HFTC ETB. And, of course, follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network on Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Once again, that X thing is going to be taking some getting used to. And as I said, you catch a lot of great shows on the network. And obviously, we have the YouTube channel. Please follow us on youtube.com/ETB Network. And please don't forget to hit that big red button down below to subscribe. It would be much appreciated. And last but not least, follow the website, etbpodcast.com, for great vlogs and more information as well. And on behalf of John Czech, I'm Hank Indictor, and we'll see you guys next week for the next episode of Hitting for the Cycle.